2, we need to play the DLCs from the first game and the expansion American Nightmare. I was very excited to play through the DLCs, and after I finished them, especially the expansion, I have this thought about, do you guys have any game on your catalog that you find that to be really bad, like really bad, but you just love to play? Despite all the flaws, you just love to boot it up and play the entire game? Keep that in mind because we're gonna discuss later. But we still need to play 2 special episodes from the first game. And funnily enough, not many people knew about those 2 special episodes. And it was quite shocking because they're actually pretty good. So sit back, relax, and let's dive once again into one of the stories of our favorite writer, Alan Wake. After finishing the game in a 13-year-old cliffhanger, there was actually a follow-up to the very last chapter of the first Alan Wake game, but accessing it is actually kinda hidden. You need to manually select the episodes from the menu to see those little 2 hidden chapters just waiting to be played. I'm not gonna lie, I almost missed them, but thankfully I'm doing a shit ton of research while making this retrospective. So the first special episode starts right where the game ends. We get a brief recap of the events of the main story, and now we are here in this distorted version of Bright Falls inside the dark place. Essentially in the first few minutes we are redoing the same steps from the very first scenes when we arrive at the diner, but this time the dialogue has those eerie distortions that pop up here and there.
Try the coffee. Just don't blame me when you fall in love, cause it'll break your heart when you have to leave.
Here is no longer human. Nothing but black coffee under a thin layer of skin.
So we repeat our steps once again. We go to the restroom at the back, but this time we didn't find Barbara. We actually found Tom and Zane.
Alan, listen to me. Go no deeper.
What?
Thomas gives us back our flashlight and our revolver, aka a 2 in a logical process of elimination, so we can once again fight the Taken. So how's the combat in the DLC? Well, if you actually want to know my opinion on the combat mechanics in a deeper way, you need to watch my latest video where I cover the entirety of the first game. But to make a brief summary, I personally enjoyed the concept of using light to kill the darkness before dealing damage. It's aesthetic with great visual and crisp sound feedback. However, the dodge mechanic is clunky, the movement feels sluggish, and the game features annoying enemies that can spawn out of your line of sight and combo you to death because you don't have invisibility frames. Especially here, where I found the combat to be substantially harder. There are a lot of sections where you have to fight a horde of Taken in tight spaces, with almost no room to dodge or reposition yourself. As a result, the fights tend to get really tense and much faster paced than in the main game. This is a great thing if you enjoy the combat, but it can also be a really bad thing if you hate it. So the diner is taken by the Taken. This pun was fully intended. And now we need to find Zane. And that's actually it. The special episodes are not meant to answer or expand too much on the story. They are just more Alan Wake. It's a welcome stretch of content without the need for you to play it in order to understand the future sequels. It's just a plus, an extra mode. View through that scope makes it even more enjoyable. But of course, it's not all the same. They actually introduced a new mechanic right at the start of the game which enhances the combat quite a bit. So basically there are these words floating that we found right at the last section of the main game, where you have to aim your flashlight towards them so you can burn the word and make the thing that was written on happen. Here, they expand upon this mechanic by adding combat options and resource gathering. Now we can cleanse the word boon, for example, and a flashbang will explode, or burn the word tools to get more resources. It gets so crazy to the point of summoning rolling barrels to explode enemies. Or even huge vehicles so we can break a bridge and make the enemies fall off. Also, a big highlight to the furnace section in the game. You have to use those blast furnaces to blast the Taken away. It is really awesome. I really wish this mechanic was explored a bit more in the main game. It makes total sense. Because one thing that bothers me about Alan Wake is that I'm a writer, and throughout this story, I play as an ordinary guy who runs, shoots, and that's it. The writer aspect shows more in cutscenes rather than gameplay. So when playing it, it's just a guy shooting stuff. However, they addressed that in Alan Wake 2 with the new murder sites mechanic, but that's a topic for the next video. So again, we need to find Thomas Zane. He keeps contacting us via our phone, saying that we're getting even deeper into the dark place, which keeps shifting. Alan realized this because Zane gives us a location that we follow using a GPS, but it keeps changing directions as Alan navigates through the dark place. This establishes a bit more about the lore and how confusing it was to live in this nightmare. Also, throughout the 2 episodes, we can actually find televisions where we can see Alan, but in a different version, very distinct from the one we already become familiar with. This version is lost, truly going crazy, afraid, a version of Alan consumed by the fear and the dark place. The idea behind this is that every time we stumble upon him on the television, he will start to narrate something really bad happening to us, spawning more enemies and diverting us from the path leading to Zane even more each time. I really enjoyed this because the voice acting is terrific on a whole nother level. Matthew really showcases his skills as a voice actor, leaving me genuinely impressed and also baffled at how well he can adapt to his roles. From Dr. Darling to Alan Wake to Mr. Scratch, it's really amazingly well performed dialogue, especially because we don't find moments like this in the main game, which was such a shame. Talking about good voice acting, Barry is back, reasonable than ever. I love Barry. He's funny, enjoyable to hear, has some of the best dialogue in the game, and if there is Barry in the game, it should ramp up the score at least a full point just for that.
Bestseller, looking good.
You're not real.
Well, no shit. What gave me away? What, the see-through thing? I'm a figment of your imagination, just like pretty much everything else you see here. Maybe even you.
One strong aspect of the special chapters is the level design itself. Now that we are in the dark place, things don't necessarily need to follow a certain logic, and they actually went a bit crazy here in the both special episodes. In the first one, we have this valley full of words to cleanse, but be careful not to cleanse the word enemy to avoid spawning more taken. Using those words really enhances the gameplay, making it more dynamic and adding even more decision making. It is fantastic design. The game also features this gigantic valley of lampposts that spawn through the ground and light up as you burn the enemies that are following you. It's really crazy and just fits the game so well. I mentioned in the Alan Wake video that Alan Wake really excels when he goes full crazy. It fits the narrative and the aesthetic really well. Even if in theory it doesn't make sense, it makes the entire series unique. So we kill some Taken, use a searchlight as some sort of a turret section so we can make ourselves a bridge, kill more Taken, burn some flying books because we don't need no education, and also we kill some monster trucks? What the? I love when the game goes crazy, but this is a really good example when it doesn't work. Monster trucks and driving. Yeah, I just don't know what to say at this point. So here the game starts to show Alan some audio flashbacks from times when Alan was back in the real world with Alice. It doesn't add to the story, just a little glimpse into Alan's character and how he and Alice were really happy before Alan got famous. We even get a short flashback scene from both in a photo shoot having a wholesome moment. After that, we find Zane, who tells us we're finding ourselves as he shows us going mad on the television. That Alan, who has been yelling at us throughout the entire chapter, making bad things happen, is the key for Alan to stop this. He wants to escape, but first, he has to confront his own self, the part that was consumed by the dark place. We play as the logical part of Alan, and we need to contain the wild part that is just sinking into darkness and pulling us with it. A really deep and interesting concept that made me question how the game would express this deep idea in gameplay, how Alan would finally confront his inner demons and a boss fight against the television. Yes. And it fucking sucks. But the voice acting is really good though, especially after finishing the fight, thus ending the first special chapter.
There you go, Alan.
Hartman.
It's all in your head. You've been making it up. Really, Wayne. Really, Wayne. Come on. Your delusions.
Why is this happening to me? Lodge. No. No. Hartman. There's no way out. No way out. No way out. I need to get out of here. Get out. No. How do I get out of here?
Special Episode 2 was my favorite by far. Here we continue our adventure in search of our other half that went mad because of the dark place, as Zane guides us and helps us throughout the episode. In this episode we got amazing moments like the amazing explosive barrels that I love, and this knockoff version of the farm fight which was really disturbing in a good way.
The music screeched and boomed around Wake as the monsters attacked.
I think this episode went crazy in the level design, which is something that made me want more. We have this tornado right at the beginning where we sadly have to do some platforming. Not Alan's strongest suit. But we get this magnificent view of the tornado as we use our flashlight to make a new path towards our objective. It's a visual feast, and this tone remains consistently throughout the entire chapter, with other memorable moments like the Ferris wheel that Alan has to go through. There are many rooms that you navigate through that were key in the main game, making some sort of a mini retrospective of the events. A great section where physics even come into play, allowing you to wait for objects to get out of the way before proceeding it. You even encountered these gigantic typewriter keys that you have to jump on, and each time you do, they even make the sound of the keys. It's unexpected and crazy, adding to the random aspect that works in Alan Wake. And talking about gigantic typewriter keys, there's even a secret area where you can find an actual gigantic typewriter. I was actually really happy to find this one, especially because you get an achievement doing so. After some explosions and making questionable decisions, we arrive at one of the interesting parts of the episode. We stumble upon Dr. Hartman and Alan, but he has a television in his head, probably representing the part that we are seeing on the TV that is trying to prevent us from reaching him. Here, Hartman and Alan discuss how Alan was indeed going crazy and how he was exaggerating things, similar to what he was trying to convey in the main game. However, this version of Alan actually accepts that everything that is happening is indeed his fault, especially after listening to Alice talk about some really heavy stuff.
I hate you for leaving me in the dark with that insane monster bitch! All you had to do was act like a loving human being for once in your life and stay with me. If your dramatic exit hadn't been more important than making sure I was alright, she would never have taken me. I don't know where you went, but that's okay. I don't want to know. I don't think I'll ever be alright. The only thing that keeps me from killing myself is the hope that I'll never see you again.
Of course, nothing is real, it's just another attempt by the Dark Place to try to make you surrender, but we are close to the end, and I really enjoy how the ending section is excellent. You have the light from the lighthouse in the background, lighting up your path from time to time. However, there are some big rocks blocking the way, so the light beam doesn't go through. But Alan is a skill writer, and he uses words to cleanse the path from these huge boulders as you go. It's another enjoyable sequence, a cool highlight moment that made me wonder why we didn't have those moments like this in the main game. Nonetheless, I'm glad we got this at least. This DLC is very short but has some of the most memorable moments from the first game, for sure. But we are not done yet. We'll still need to get back to the cabin so we can reunite with our other half. But before that, we need to fight our own consciousness, represented by Barry and our friends. Of course, they are not literally our friends, just figments from our imagination. The infamous final boss fight. And again, he fucking sucked. There are 3 phases where we have to first fight Dr. Hardman and both Anderson brothers, but they are the variant of the Taken that just runs around the entire area until you have a brief 2 seconds room to aim your flashlight towards it so you can slowly chip away the dark shield. It is not engaging, super boring, and it's definitely my least favorite type of Taken. But the last phase is against Barry, which you just shoot him down until he disappears 3 times. It's better than the other 3 enemies for sure, because he's just a normal Taken, but it's just boring because you just shoot him until he dies. It's not the strongest boss fight wind up the entire game, but comparing with the not so vast catalog from bosses that we fought throughout the first game, I think this is not so bad. So after cleansing our final enemies, we arrive at the cabin, finally reuniting with our other half.
Why is this happening to me? It's too dark. Where am I? I can't find my way. Why is this happening to me? I can't find my way. It's too dark. Why is this happening to me?
Just like that, my mind was clear. Zane had been right. I could think clearly again. But I couldn't survive in this place the way he had, and I might not make it back a second time. Leaving this place would be hard. Maybe impossible. It wouldn't take much for my thoughts to stray again. It was too easy to get lost in the dark place. Before, I was ready to curl up and die, let myself slip away. But here I was, the yet unwritten future waiting to unfold before me. A sequel to Departure. My name is Alan Wake, and I'm a writer.
So there was the 2 special episodes. They are quite nice, have memorable moments with a little addition to combat mechanics and other things that were super welcome and creative to the game. If you didn't play yet, just go for it. It will not take you more than 3 hours of your day, and it's just more Alan Wake 1 if you really enjoy the game. So, American Nightmare. Now is the time for the Alan Wake so-called worst DLC or spin-off, which I was actually quite shocked before playing it, because look at this. You see? Mostly positive reviews. This made me super excited to play. The banner from the Steam is also really dope. It makes me wonder how cool this game could be, but remember the question that I asked in the start of the video about liking a really bad game that everyone likes to shit on. Well, I particularly didn't like American Nightmare. It's actually the opposite of liking it. But I can't deny that despite being bad, I had a shit ton of fun. It was a bad fun game. Do you guys have one of those games? So back in the day, we had something called Xbox Live Arcade, where the focus was publishing small budget games from big companies and also small companies with a price range of $5 to $20, which at the time was something that was really cool, really welcome. We got some really cool games like Bionic Commando, which I really enjoy, Blacklight, Castle fucking Crashers. It was just a really golden age from Xbox, so seeing an Alan Wake title there was something to make you really hyped. Remedy wanted to make a sequel sequel for Alan Wake 2, but sadly they didn't have the budget, only some assets that they had been working on before completely stop Alan Wake's 2 production. With a small budget, they decided to give the fans more Alan Wake because despite poor sales, the Alan Wake fanbase was growing slowly but surely. It was a cult classic after all. So American Nightmare was released as a $10 spin-off in the Alan Wake universe. And considering the consequences, I feel bad talking shit about this game, but I can be dishonest and say that this game is good. So I will try my best to give you an honest review, so let's go before I regret everything. The game starts with a cutscene where we can see Alan is being featured in a Night Springs episode, and look, a live-action cutscene. I think this was the first time Remedy did that.
The man before you is a champion of light. He is part of a conflict between darkness and light that is both ancient and eternal. He is chasing a dangerous quarry, the Herald of Darkness. His evil doppelganger, known only as Mr. Scratch.
I'll catch you eventually!
Maybe. But what are you gonna do then? By then, I'll have had my hands on everything you love.
So the story is really straightforward. We are trapped in a dark place, and this is just one of the attempts that Alan did to escape. One of his stories which I really do enjoy the concept. He's been stuck in a dark place for 13 years and we barely know what kind of stories he wrote to get out of there. So I like that this being one of the attempts they could create a confined story in a really short game. Strong positive. The setting for the game is a desert from Arizona, which personally is an enjoyable one. I really do love this desert area 51 aesthetic. It really reminds me of Vigilant 8 and also a bit of Transit in Black Ops Zombies. When we visit the diner part, I vividly remember that it's pretty similar. The setting for me was aesthetically pleasing. Another strong positive. The combat is also improved. Alan's movement feels a bit more fluid and the window to dodge is really good. I was easily avoiding attacks, which actually made the game quite easy. So if you're bothered by that, just set a difficult to Nightmare, but even then it might be a little too easy. Nevertheless, it was enjoyable to play. A bit more fast-paced. Additionally, Alan can now run for more than 3 seconds, which we soon learn why they increased the sprint duration because Alan gotta go fast. I mean, you've been running from point to point constantly, covering a decent amount of distance between sections, but yeah, the control improvement is also another very strong positive. We also have Mr. Scratch, the antagonist from this game, which is very well acted. And you can see they love this version so much that he was also in the pro material for this game, which I strongly recommend you to watch. This is really goofy.
Mr. Scratch is brilliant as Alan's psychopathic alter ego made flesh, and serves as one of the more believable and memorable examples of a purely evil video game antagonist in recent history. Purely evil? Thank you, sir. But I'm just what people want me to be.
We find him throughout the game in those televisions where he just toys with Alan and teases him from the entire game. Each time he appears is just goofy and fun to watch. And my god, Mr. Scratch definitely got the moves. So, Mr. Scratch, or better said, since you have full control of what's happening in this story, Alan basically has to find a way to defeat Scratch so he can escape from the dark place. However, each time you succeeded at reaching Scratch, he takes Alan back to the beginning of the game. Yes, this game has 3 different levels: the Desert Shore, the Observatory, and the Driving Theater, which is the final stage. Essentially, you have to play through the game 3 times, but each loop is shorter due to Alan and the characters you encounter along the way remembering what they've done in the past loops. So they already know what to do in certain sections, or they may already have some items that you don't need to go out of your way to collect. Thank God, because if I had to repeat the exact same loop 3 times, I would not be reviewing this DLC at all. Not a strong positive. But Maybe a thank God sedative? Oh, also the game has much more variety in enemies and weapons. I think they actually heard the criticism from the first game and tried their best to fix some things for the spin-off, adding more guns, which was super fun. Guess which gun was my favorite? I doubt that you guys are going to guess.
Heavy machine gun!
Fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah, America! Fuck yeah! Freedom is the only way, yeah!
The enemies now are more varied, and I really love that. Throughout the game we encounter new types, even in the final stages. It is indeed really fun and prevents this loop from getting too repetitive or boring. But yeah, that was all the positives. And we still have more to talk about. So how does the loops work? Well, as I mentioned, we start at the desert shore, where we have a basic tutorial of how things work, and now you just run around and explore the map. Or actually, you don't. So they build those levels as a semi-open world confined sandbox, where at first you are overwhelmed by all the structures and places you can go to explore. But you quickly realize that all the doors are usually locked, and if you follow the main objective, you will eventually go through all the sections you need to collect the script pages. So the game gives you this sense of scale, but you quickly realize that it's just very, very dull. And yes, here you can also collect manuscript pages, which essentially explains about the first game, the main plot, a bit of Alan and his friend's backstory, but overall the main purpose of the script was to unlock the real American nightmare.
Heavy machine gun!
So basically collecting a certain amount of manuscript pages will allow you to unlock those letter cases that are scattered around the levels. Each case contains a really powerful weapon, ranging from a combat shotgun to an assault rifle. And this made me laugh so hard because having a fucking machine gun in a survival horror game is just the most absurd it can get. This is American positive. In the desert shore we meet Emma, which it's not good. Look, we know this game has a low budget, so maybe the voice acting wasn't the focus. However, considering the amount of dialogue that we have to listen to, it was definitely not the best part of the game. Each section has a character that interacts with Alan in those loops. They will always talk about how they were already seeing Alan before, but it was actually Scratch that tormented some of those characters in another loop.
Go away.
It wasn't me. I just look like him.
Are you serious? That's what you're going with? Please!
I'm trying to stop him. You saw those shadow things trying to kill me, right? I bet he got along with them just fine.
Yes. Yes, he did. All right, come on in.
Those characters are not memorable, and the dialogue is just dull. It doesn't add much, it just sets the setting and what's been happening, but not in a deeper way. Plus, it's just boring dialogue, definitely a strong negative. So yeah, back to the desert shore. We talk to Emma, collect some shit, we solve some puzzles, so a big satellite falls off an orbit and hits the oil tower? What the fuck? By the way, there's a really nice song that plays in this section, but it doesn't make sense. I cannot play it because it's copyrighted, but you got the idea. Now we go back to Emma, she dies, and now we find some keys and loading screen. No, not this one. So now we are in the observatory, and guess what? Talk to the science and get some more shit, then go back to her and engage in more dialogue. This continues until we are finally able to advance to the driving section, and guess what again? You guessed it, go and get some more stuff so you can turn on the power, but not before some questionable dialogue. Do you remember the first game when Alice said that the dark presence was shifting the genre of the story to horror? Here, the dark presence was shifting the genre to stepsis getting stuck in the dark place.
Oh, it's you. That's fantastic.
Are you okay?
Go away. No, I want you.
So after you turn on the power, you gotta go to the projector booth, do a so-called puzzle, and then the loop is finished. Just do this 2 more times and you are finally done. It's baffling bad, considering this is an Alan Wake IP. But look, again, we know that the budget was tight and also that the deadlines for those types of games are really short. So they deliver what they could. Remedy is very passionate and perfectionist in their craft, and you can see that they didn't want this game to be released in this this state. Even the musical sections of the game, which is something that Remedy loves to do and really knows how to, here is just random. You have the satellite part where the song just starts playing randomly, to the observatory fight where it just starts to play. No setup, no story context, nothing. It's just there. Keeps on taking while the song jams in the background. Even this metal door here has the sound of a normal wooden door. This seems small, but it shows how Remedy didn't have the proper time and budget for this game, sadly. Despite its flaws, which are numerous, and the predominantly positive reviews on Steam being somewhat deceptive, American Nightmare isn't crucial to the Remedy connected universe. However, it is a game I always wanted to play, and despite everything I mentioned, I really enjoyed my time with it. It was goofy, funny as shit, the Mr.Scratch scenes are memorable, and absurd variety of weapons kept me entertained enough to even attempt a second playthrough in my free time. But I like to be honest about what I think about games, even when I love them. Despite having a good time for the most part, this game is a really bad one. Whatever is priced at $10 or less is legendarily bad. However, if you truly love Alan Wake, you should play it. It offers a short 3-hour funny campaign video gaming experience, and you know, I have a good time. Finally, we finished another video from our retrospective. We discussed the first Alan Wake and his DLCs, Control and his DLCs, and now onto the final video about Alan Wake 2. This one will take me a bit more time to make, considering that I will be finishing the game 2 more times for the review, so bear with me. But yeah, American Nightmare was a funny spin-off story from Alan that actually had a happy ending.
Alan? Is it really you?
It's really me.
How? I love you.
I love you.
held apart for far too long, enveloped in the light of a glorious dawn. They both feel it. He's home at last.
But was the happy ending really true? The dark place works in a dream logic. So like a dream, you could have a good one, or even a nightmare. You could control it, or forget what you dream of just the next day. Despite what Alan writes, being good or bad, all those chapters happen inside the dark place. Alan is still trapped there. Will he ever find his way out? Or will the story eat us alive?